I never imagined my mom would do something like this. I mean, you always hear stories about family drama, but you never think it'll happen to you. At least, I didn't. My baby shower was supposed to be a celebration, a joyful occasion where I could share the excitement of welcoming my first baby with the people I loved. But instead, it turned into something I'll never forget, and not in a good way. The shower was beautiful. Everything was perfect. My friends, my cousins, even a few of my mom's friends showed up. I was so overwhelmed with gratitude. I had received so many thoughtful gifts, clothes, toys, books, even some handmade stuff. It felt like everything I could ever need for my baby was finally in my hands. I remember looking at the pile of gifts and feeling so blessed. But little did I know, that would be the last time I'd feel that way. The next morning, after all the guests had left and the house was quiet, I went to check on the gifts. I wanted to start organizing everything, putting the clothes in drawers and figuring out what else I still needed to buy. But when I walked into the room where I had left everything, I couldn't believe my eyes. The pile of gifts? It was gone. Completely gone. I stood there frozen, thinking maybe I was seeing things. Maybe I had misplaced something, or maybe someone had taken them by accident. But no. I checked every single room. I called everyone who had been at the party. Nothing. My heart started pounding as the realization hit me like a ton of bricks. I walked downstairs to find my mom sitting on the couch, acting like everything was fine. She was sipping her coffee, completely calm. It wasn't just that she had taken the gifts. It was how casually she was sitting there, like nothing had happened. I couldn't stay silent. I couldn't pretend like everything was okay. "Mom," I said, my voice shaking, "where are all the gifts from my shower?" She didn't even look up at me. She just took another sip of her coffee, as if I hadn't even spoken. "What gifts?" she replied, so nonchalantly it made my blood boil. I felt my hands shaking as I tried to keep my cool. "Mom, don't play dumb. The gifts from my baby shower. They were in the guest room. Where are they?" She finally looked up at me, but her face didn't show any guilt, any remorse. Instead, she looked almost defensive. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, standing up. "I thought you had packed everything away. I didn't see anything out of place." I knew then. I knew that she was lying. I could feel it in my bones. But at that moment, I didn't know what to do. I was in shock. The woman who had always been my support, the one who was supposed to help me through this crazy time, had betrayed me in the worst way possible. She took my gifts, the ones meant for my baby, without even asking. "Mom, this isn't funny. Where are the gifts?" I repeated, my voice starting to break as the weight of the situation hit me. Finally, she sighed and sat back down, looking irritated now. "Gianna, you're overreacting. I took them because I thought you'd need them later. You don't have space for all that stuff right now. I'm just trying to help." "Why are you making this such a big deal?" "Help?" My head was spinning. I had no idea how to react. This wasn't help. This was theft. She had taken something I needed for my baby, something that was meant to be a part of a special moment in my life. I wasn't going to let it slide. I wasn't going to sit there and pretend like it didn't matter. "You're not helping," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "You took my stuff without asking. That's not helping, Mom. That's stealing. And I don't know how you think this is okay, but it's not." She looked at me with that same calm expression, almost like she wasn't taking me seriously at all. But deep down, I could feel the tension building between us. This wasn't just about the gifts anymore. This was about trust. And right now, I didn't trust her. Gianna, calm down. I'm your mother. I know what's best for you, she said, almost condescendingly. But the anger inside me was bubbling over. How dare she? I wasn't some child anymore. I was an adult, and I had a baby on the way. I didn't need anyone, especially my mom, taking things into their own hands without consulting me. I could feel the frustration rising in my chest, but I wasn't going to let her brush me off. Not this time. You don't get to decide what's best for me. Not anymore. You don't get to take my things and tell me I'm overreacting. This is my baby, my life, my decision. You can't keep treating me like a child. Not now, not ever again. Her expression finally faltered, but she didn't apologize. Instead, she just stood up and walked away, muttering under her breath. I was left standing there, stunned, heart pounding in my chest. But one thing was clear. I wasn't going to back down. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. I was furious, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized how much I had let my mom control my life. She had always done it, always told me what was best, always assumed that she knew better. But this was my baby, my future, and I wasn't going to let her walk all over me anymore. I wasn't a little girl anymore. I had a voice, and I was going to use it. The next day, I gathered all my courage. I knew I needed to confront my mom, but this time, it wasn't going to be the same as before. I wasn't going to be the passive daughter who just let things slide. This time, I had to stand up for myself and my baby. I needed to make her understand how wrong this was, how deep the betrayal ran. I didn't want to start a war with my own mom. I didn't want to tear our family apart. But the truth was, she had already done that herself. She had crossed a line, and I couldn't let it go. I couldn't keep pretending like everything was okay, because it wasn't. I waited until after dinner that night. The house was quiet, and I could hear the soft hum of the television in the living room. I found my mom sitting on the couch, flipping through a magazine. It was like nothing had happened, like she didn't just steal everything that was supposed to be part of one of the happiest moments of my life. I stood in the doorway for a moment, just watching her. I could feel the anger building inside me, but I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. This wasn't just about the gifts anymore. It was about respect, boundaries, and the realization that I was no longer a little girl she could control. Mom, I started, my voice low but steady. She looked up at me, surprised but not concerned. Gianna, what's going on? She asked, her voice casual, like everything was fine. I crossed the room and sat across from her, my hands clenched in my lap. You know exactly what's going on, I said, meeting her eyes. You took my baby shower gifts without asking me. You didn't even tell me, and then you had the nerve to brush me off like it didn't matter. She shifted uncomfortably but didn't respond right away. You're overreacting, she said, her tone almost dismissive. I thought you'd be too busy to organize everything. I just wanted to help. I didn't think you'd make such a big deal out of it. I couldn't believe it. The more she spoke, the more I felt like she didn't even understand what she had done. It wasn't just about the gifts. It was about the trust, about the boundaries she had overstepped. No, Mom, I said, my voice tightening. You don't get to decide when you can just take things from me. You don't get to decide what's best for me, especially when it comes to my baby. You had no right to take my gifts and not tell me. It's not about the things you took. It's about the fact that you think you can do whatever you want without considering how it affects me, how my baby feels, how I feel. Her face darkened, and I could see her frustration rising. But I wasn't backing down this time. I wasn't going to let her control the narrative. "I'm your mother," she said, her voice rising. "I've been doing this longer than you. I've been through all of it. You're being dramatic. I was just trying to help, Gianna. But fine, if you're going to act like this, I won't bother you anymore. I can't believe you're making such a big deal out of nothing." That was it. That's when it hit me. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even trying to understand why I was upset. She just wanted to be right. She just wanted to control everything and tell me how to feel. I felt a cold anger wash over me as I realized that nothing I said would make her see the truth. She wasn't the mother I thought she was. She was someone who couldn't take responsibility for her actions, someone who thought she could always control the situation, no matter the cost. "You know what, Mom?" I said, my voice trembling with anger. "It's not just about the gifts. It's about the fact that you never ask me what I need. You just assume you know better. You took something from me, and then you tried to make me feel like it was my fault. You made me feel small. You made me feel like I didn't have any say in my own life. This, this isn't the first time you've done this. It's always been like this. And I'm done." She opened her mouth to say something, but I held up my hand, stopping her. "I'm not going to let you do this anymore, Mom. I love you, but I need to stand up for myself, and I need to do it for my baby, too." There was a long silence between us, both of us breathing heavily, emotions running high. For a moment, I thought she might apologize, that maybe she would finally get it. But instead, she just stood up, her expression cold. "Fine," she said, her voice tight. "If that's how you feel, I guess we're done." And just like that, she walked out of the room. I sat there, stunned. Her words hit me harder than anything else. She wasn't just upset, she was pushing me away. And for the first time, I realized that I had to choose. Choose between keeping the peace or standing up for what I believed in. I wasn't sure what would happen next. But one thing was clear. I had crossed a line and I couldn't go back. The damage had been done, and I knew there was no going back to the way things were before. The days that followed the confrontation were rough. After that heated argument, I didn't see my mom for nearly 3 days. She was avoiding me, and to be honest, I was avoiding her too. I didn't know what else to say or do. The anger was still fresh in my chest, but so was the guilt. I didn't want things to be like this. I didn't want to feel like I was losing my mom over something as petty as a baby shower gift. But in the back of my mind, I knew it wasn't about the gifts anymore. It was about respect, boundaries, understanding that I was no longer the little girl who needed constant guidance or interference. I spent most of those days thinking. I was questioning whether I had done the right thing by confronting her. Maybe I could have handled it differently. Maybe I could have just let it go and avoided all of this tension. But as the days went on, the weight of the situation began to feel heavier, and I realized that it wasn't just the gifts that had hurt me. It was everything. The way my mom had always treated me like I was incapable of handling things on my own. The way she'd always undermined my decisions and acted like I couldn't make choices for myself. For a long time, I had let her have that control. I had stayed silent, smiled through her little jabs, and pretended everything was fine. But this time, something snapped. I wasn't going to take it anymore, and I knew that standing up for myself had been the right thing to do. But that didn't make it any easier. On the fourth day, I finally decided to reach out. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I couldn't keep living in this uncomfortable silence. I dialed her number, my hand shaking as I waited for her to pick up. When she finally answered, there was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Mom?" I said softly, trying to keep my voice steady. "Can we talk?" There was another silence, this one heavier, more strained. But then she spoke, her tone guarded. "What's there to talk about, Gianna?" I felt my chest tighten. I didn't want to push her away even more, but I couldn't pretend like everything was fine either. I just, I don't want things to be like this. I'm sorry if I hurt you by confronting you. But you hurt me first. I needed to stand up for myself, for my baby. "I know," she said quietly, her voice softer now. "I know I've been difficult, but I just wanted to help, Gianna. I thought I was doing the right thing. I don't know why you're so upset over something so small." "Because it wasn't just about the gifts, Mom," I said, my voice breaking. "It's about how you treated me, like I didn't have a say in my own life, in my own pregnancy. I don't want you to control everything. I want you to see me as an adult. Your daughter, yes, but also a grown woman who's capable of making decisions." There was a long pause before she spoke again, and when she did, her voice was soft, almost hesitant. "I never meant to make you feel like that. I don't know how to stop being your mother. I've been your mother for so long, and it's hard to let go of that role." "I don't want you to stop being my mom," I said, a lump forming in my throat. "I just want us to have a healthier relationship. I want to be treated like I matter, like my decisions matter. I want to make this work, but I need you to understand that things have to change." There was another pause, and for a moment I thought maybe she wasn't going to respond. But then she spoke, her voice quieter than before. "I hear you, Gianna, and I'm sorry. I really am. I never meant to make you feel small or like you didn't matter. I just wanted to help. I thought I knew what was best. But I realize now that I don't always know what's best for you." That was the moment I had been waiting for. She had apologized, not just for the gifts, but for everything. For the way she had treated me, for the control, for everything. And I realized then that I didn't have to carry the weight of this situation by myself. I wasn't alone in this. She was acknowledging her mistakes, and that was a huge step. "I know you want to help, Mom," I said softly, wiping away the tears I hadn't even realized had fallen. "But I need you to trust me. I need you to trust that I can handle this, that I can do this on my own. I know it's hard for you, but I'm asking for your support, not your control." "I'll try, Gianna, I will. I'm not perfect, and I know I've made mistakes, but I'll try to let go and give you the space you need." I could hear the sincerity in her voice, and for the first time in days, I felt a sense of relief. Things weren't going to be fixed overnight, but we had taken the first step toward rebuilding our relationship. The conversation ended on a soft note, and I sat there for a while, feeling like a weight had been lifted off my chest. It wasn't the perfect solution, but it was a start. I had stood up for myself, and now I could begin to heal. My mom was still my mom, and I still loved her. But I wasn't going to let her walk all over me anymore. I had found my voice, and I was going to use it every single time. After that conversation with my mom, things didn't magically go back to the way they were before. I think both of us knew it would take time to rebuild the trust that had been broken. The silence was still there, lingering between us. But it wasn't as suffocating as it had been before. I think we both understood that we needed space, but we also knew we had to start somewhere. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I had taken control of my own life, like I had finally found my voice, and that made all the difference. But even though things were slightly better, I knew the hard part was still ahead. I had opened a door, but I wasn't sure if my mom was ready to walk through it just yet. She was still my mom, still trying to protect me, still trying to fix everything her way. But I knew now that I had to stand my ground. I wasn't going to let her bulldoze over me again. The fight for my independence wasn't over. It had only just begun. Over the next few weeks, I worked on setting clearer boundaries. I was still in the midst of preparing for my baby's arrival, and there were plenty of things that needed to be done. But I wasn't going to let my mom take control of every little detail. Every time she offered to help or give me advice, I politely declined. I started making my own decisions. I began taking charge of my baby's room, my choices, my life. It was empowering in a way I hadn't expected. There were times when it was hard, especially when my mom would offer suggestions or try to do things for me. But I stuck to my guns. I reminded myself that I had the right to be the mother, the one who made the choices. I won't lie, it wasn't easy. There were moments when I felt guilty, like I was being too harsh. My mom was just trying to help, and she didn't always understand why I was pulling away. But every time I felt that guilt creeping in, I reminded myself that I wasn't rejecting her. I was rejecting her control. There's a difference. A few weeks later, after we had both had some time to cool off, my mom reached out to me again. This time, it wasn't a confrontation. It was more of an invitation. She was ready to try again, but this time, on my terms. Gianna, she said, her voice softer than I remembered. I've been thinking about everything you said, and I realize that I've been overbearing. I just want to be there for you, but I get it now. I can't force my way into your life. I'm sorry for that. I took a deep breath. It wasn't a full-on apology, but it was a start. It was her acknowledging that I had the right to live my own life. And for that, I was grateful. I appreciate you saying that, Mom, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. I know you want what's best for me, but I need you to trust me, just like I'm trying to trust myself. I want to make my own decisions, and I want you to support me in that. We were both quiet for a moment, each of us processing what the other had said. And then, surprisingly, she nodded. I will, Gianna. I will support you. I just want you to know that I'll always be here when you need me. But I understand now that you need space to do things your way. It wasn't perfect, and I wasn't sure if everything would be fine moving forward, but I could see the sincerity in her eyes. For the first time in a while, it felt like we were both willing to meet each other halfway. There were still some things left unsaid, still some unresolved feelings, but we were getting there. As I continued to prepare for my baby's arrival, things started to feel more manageable. I wasn't doing everything alone, but I was finally making the decisions that mattered to me. I made it clear to my mom when I needed help and when I didn't. I wasn't afraid to speak up anymore, and that was a huge step for me. I also began to notice something else happening as well. My mom was stepping back, but in a way that felt healthy. She wasn't constantly hovering over me or trying to take control of every little detail. She had begun to trust me more, and in turn, I trusted her more. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but it was evolving into something better, something based on mutual respect. I found a newfound strength in myself. I had always thought that standing up for myself meant fighting, shouting, and making a scene. But now I realized that standing up for myself was about setting boundaries and being clear about what I wanted. It was about communicating without fear of rejection or disappointment. It was about learning that I didn't need to sacrifice my own happiness or my own voice just to keep the peace. Things with my mom weren't completely healed. We still had moments of tension, moments when I questioned whether I was doing the right thing. But we were moving in the right direction. I had stood up for myself, and I was finally starting to see the results. I was starting to find a balance between being a daughter and being a mother. And most importantly, I was beginning to understand that sometimes the hardest part of any relationship is letting go of the control and allowing the other person to grow. My mom had learned that lesson, and now it was my turn to learn the same lesson about myself. The weeks leading up to my baby's arrival were a whirlwind. There were so many things to do, and the pressure was mounting. But even though I had my hands full with planning, setting up the nursery, and trying to keep my emotions in check, something had shifted in me. I wasn't afraid to take charge anymore. I wasn't scared of speaking up or standing my ground, and that gave me a sense of peace that I had never felt before. I was starting to embrace this new version of myself, the one who wasn't just a daughter or a friend or a partner, but a woman who had the power to make decisions for herself. I was about to become a mother, and that meant I needed to fully step into the role. It wasn't just about getting ready for the baby. It was about getting ready for a whole new chapter in my life. As the due date approached, I found myself reflecting a lot. The drama with my mom, the emotional roller coaster we had both been on, it had all been overwhelming. But as I looked back, I realized that it wasn't just the confrontation that had changed things. It was everything that came after. It was the growth, the maturity that came with standing up for myself. I wasn't the same person I was a few months ago, and neither was my mom. We had both learned valuable lessons about boundaries, trust, and respect. One evening, a few weeks before my baby was due, I found myself sitting on the couch with my mom. We were just chatting, nothing serious, when she finally broke the silence with something I hadn't expected. "I've been thinking about how everything went down, Gianna," she said, her voice soft. "And I just want to say, I'm proud of you." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear that from her. For so long, I had been trying to prove something to myself and to her. I wanted her to see me as capable, as independent, as someone who could handle life on my own terms. But hearing her say those words, it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. "I'm proud of you too, Mom," I said, looking at her with sincerity. "I know we've had our issues, but I've learned a lot from this. I've learned that we both need to make space for each other. I don't need you to do everything for me, and I don't want to feel like I'm being controlled. I just need you to trust me." She nodded, and I could see the tears welling up in her eyes. For a moment, we just sat there, in silence, letting the words settle. It was a moment of real understanding, a rare moment between us. I could feel the gap between us closing, and it gave me hope that things could truly get better. "I trust you, Gianna," she said quietly, her voice thick with emotion. "I see you. I see the woman you've become. I've always wanted the best for you, but I think I forgot that sometimes you need to walk your own path." It was like a light had clicked on. We were finally seeing each other clearly, not as mother and daughter locked in a power struggle, but as two people who loved each other, who were just trying to do their best. In the weeks that followed, things became easier. My mom still helped, but it was no longer about taking control. It was about being there when I needed her, offering advice when I asked for it, and respecting the boundaries I had set. Our relationship was no longer about her running the show. It was about both of us working together as equals, understanding that we both had our roles to play, but that I too had the right to make my own choices. As my due date finally came closer, I realized that all of this had made me stronger. I had found my voice, and I had learned how to stand up for myself in a way that was healthy, that didn't cause unnecessary conflict. I had learned to communicate what I needed and to let go of the fear that I wasn't enough, that I couldn't do this on my own. The day my baby finally arrived was everything I had hoped for. The delivery was intense, but it was filled with so much love and joy. When I held my baby for the first time, I looked at my mom, and for the first time in a long time, I felt completely at peace with her. She was there, by my side, not as someone who was trying to take over, but as my mother, someone who supported me, who loved me unconditionally, and who was ready to embrace the next phase of our relationship. The baby's arrival wasn't just the beginning of a new chapter in my life. It was the beginning of a new relationship with my mom, one where we respected each other's boundaries and roles. We had learned that love wasn't about control. It was about understanding, supporting, and growing together. As I looked at my little one, I felt this overwhelming sense of gratitude. I had been through so much, but everything had led me to this moment, and I knew that whatever came next, I was ready for it. As the days passed after my baby's birth, I found myself adjusting to this new role as a mother. It wasn't easy, but it was natural in a way. Holding my baby in my arms, caring for him and watching him grow, it felt like the most fulfilling experience of my life. But even though this new chapter brought so much joy, there was still a part of me that couldn't completely shake off the previous months of tension and conflict with my mom. The emotional scars, though healing, still lingered. In the early days of motherhood, I had to learn how to balance everything, taking care of my baby, managing the house, and making sure I was giving myself the space I needed. But alongside all this, there was my relationship with my mom. We had made so much progress, but I could feel the fragile threads of trust still being woven together. Every day, I had to remind myself that healing wasn't instantaneous. It took time, it took effort, and it took patience. I had worked hard to set boundaries, but I also had to learn how to maintain them in a healthy way. One evening, when my baby was asleep in his crib, I found myself sitting down with a cup of tea in the living room, reflecting on everything that had happened. I had come so far, emotionally, mentally, and even physically. But I realized I still hadn't fully addressed how I felt about everything that had transpired between my mom and me. I needed to clear the air, once and for all. I dialed her number, my heart beating a little faster than usual. I wasn't sure what I would say, but I knew it was time to have one more conversation. A conversation about forgiveness, understanding, and moving forward. "Mom?" I said when she picked up the phone, trying to keep my voice steady. "Can we talk?" There was a moment of hesitation on the other end of the line, but then she replied, "Of course, Gianna. What's on your mind?" I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. "I've been thinking about everything that happened between us, especially with the baby shower gifts. And I want you to know that I don't hold any grudges. I understand now that you were trying to help in your own way, but I also realized that I needed to stand up for myself. I needed to make my own choices, and I'm glad I did. There was a long silence before she responded, and I could tell she was processing everything I was saying. Gianna, she began, her voice quieter now. I've been thinking too. I've realized that I've been trying to control everything, and I haven't given you the room to grow into the woman and mother you are meant to be. I've made mistakes, but I'm proud of you. I'm proud of how you've handled everything, and I just want you to know that I'm here for you, no matter what. Tears welled up in my eyes as I listened to her words. It wasn't just an apology. It was an acknowledgement of the growth we both needed to go through. My mom was acknowledging my independence, my decisions, and the fact that I wasn't a child anymore. She had finally seen me for who I had become, and it meant the world to me. I'm proud of you too, Mom, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I know things weren't easy between us, but I want you to know that I love you, and I always will. This wasn't just about the gifts. It was about me learning to stand up for myself, and about us learning how to support each other. I don't need you to control everything anymore. I just need you to be there for me in the way I need. There was another pause, and then I heard a soft sigh on the other end of the line. I can do that, Gianna. I'll be here for you, as a mother, as a grandmother. I may not always understand your choices, but I promise I'll respect them. I love you, sweetheart. And just like that, I felt the weight of the past few months lift off my shoulders. We were starting over. We were rebuilding, but this time we were doing it with a mutual understanding. The emotional tension that had been hanging in the air for so long was slowly dissipating, and I felt lighter than I had in weeks. As the weeks turned into months, I noticed a subtle but profound change in our relationship. My mom wasn't trying to control everything anymore. She was supporting me in ways that felt healthy and nurturing, not overbearing. She helped when I asked, but she also respected my space and my decisions. I started feeling like we were finally in sync. We weren't perfect, but we were better. And as I looked at my baby, who was growing so fast and already starting to show his personality, I knew that this was what mattered most. Family, love, respect, trust. These were the things that would carry us through the next chapter, the next phase of our lives. I had learned that standing up for myself was a powerful thing, but so was forgiveness. It wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about learning from it and using it to build something stronger. One day, as I was sitting in the living room with my baby in my arms, my mom came over to visit. She sat beside me, smiling at her grandson as he cooed in my arms. I'm glad we're in a better place, Gianna, she said softly. I know it wasn't easy, but I think we're both better for it. Me too, Mom, I replied, a smile forming on my face. Me too. In that moment, I realized that the most important lesson I had learned through all of this was that growth and healing weren't linear. There were ups and downs, mistakes and lessons, but as long as we kept trying, we could always move forward. And I was ready to keep moving forward, with my family beside me, stronger than ever before. As the days went by, life started to settle into a new rhythm. The once constant tension with my mom had faded into something more manageable, more balanced. We were still learning how to respect each other's boundaries, but the foundation of our relationship had shifted into something healthier. I was learning to trust myself more, and in turn, I was learning to trust my mom in a new way. It felt like we were finally walking side by side, not one leading the other, but both finding our way together. Motherhood had changed me. It had opened my eyes to what truly mattered: to the power of patience, of understanding, and of letting go of control. I had always thought that controlling my life and decisions was the only way to protect myself and my baby. But now I understood that true strength came from flexibility, from allowing others to help when needed, and most importantly, from knowing when to let go of the past. One afternoon, as I sat with my baby, watching him sleep peacefully in his crib, I thought back to everything that had happened. The conflict with my mom, the pain of feeling betrayed, the struggle to find my voice. It all seemed so far away now. My baby was growing, and I had learned that I needed to let go of old grudges to move forward. I had learned that no one was perfect, including my mom. But love and growth came from understanding, from making mistakes, and from giving second chances. Later that evening, after I had put my baby to sleep, I sat down with my mom for what felt like the 100th conversation we'd had since everything changed. But this one was different. This time, there was no tension, no defensiveness, just two women, mother and daughter, sharing a quiet moment together. "You know," my mom said, breaking the silence, "I've been thinking a lot about what you said to me, about how you needed to stand up for yourself. I didn't fully understand it at first, but now I do. I've always wanted the best for you, but I think I forgot that sometimes the best thing I can do is trust you and let you make your own choices." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me. "I know, Mom, and I appreciate everything you've done for me, but I needed to do this for myself and for my baby. I needed to be the one in control of my life, not just a passive passenger." She reached over and squeezed my hand, a gesture of support that spoke volumes. "I understand now, Gianna, and I'm proud of you. You've grown so much, and I can see that you're ready for whatever comes next." In that moment, I realized that this was what it was all about: growth. It wasn't about being right or wrong, about winning or losing. It was about learning from our mistakes, forgiving each other, and building a stronger foundation. It was about evolving together, even when life threw curveballs our way. I had learned something important through all of this: that sometimes the hardest battles we face are the ones within our own families. But these are the relationships that teach us the most. They teach us how to love unconditionally, how to forgive, and how to stand up for what we believe in without tearing each other apart. As my mom and I sat there, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was a new beginning, not just for me, but for our entire family. And I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, with honesty, trust, and the understanding that we were all doing the best we could. If you've enjoyed this emotional journey and want to hear more powerful stories of family, love, and personal growth, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss the next chapter of real-life lessons and heartfelt stories. Don't forget to like, comment, and turn on notifications so you can stay updated on the next powerful story that will make you reflect, learn, and grow. Lesson learned. Life isn't about perfection or control. It's about understanding, growth, and the willingness to adapt. The best relationships are the ones where both people respect each other's boundaries and make room for each other's personal journeys. It's never too late to rebuild and grow stronger together.